Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board-certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Jen Mall with Nurse Connect Podcast, and I've got Lauren here. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Please share, how did you get started in nursing, and what's kind of your path been since you became a nurse?
Perfect. Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Lauren. I reside in Florida. I am a nurse and holistic nurse coach as well. I started nursing. I went back to nursing school after my 4 years of college. Yeah, I played volleyball in college, Division I athlete up in New York. I played volleyball. I'm 6'1", so if that's interesting for anybody. So I played volleyball, I graduated, I came home, I went to nursing school, and then I've been doing nursing for about 2.5 years now. A little bit of everywhere. I started in Florida and then I did some travel nursing. I went to North Carolina, I went to Boston, and now I'm back in Florida. And I also coach youth volleyball with my dad, which is awesome. Yeah. And I kind of fell in love with coaching and that aspect of it. And I also love nursing. I'm an ER nurse, so I love the go, 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 the ever changing of the ER. And I, came across the Nurse Coach Collective, and it put my two favorite things together. And I said, absolutely. And I dove right in, and I am also a certified nurse coach. So it's awesome to be here and to connect with others, and kind of just share more about what we do.
Awesome. So I want to back up just a little bit, because if I'm thinking right, if you were been a nurse for 2.5 years, you started right when COVID was really rearing its ugly head. How was that as a nurse? I mean, did you get all of your nursing school preparation? Tell me a little bit about that time.
It was terrifying, honestly. I was in nursing school when COVID hit. I was doing a 16-month program, accelerated program, and everything had to change. Everything went online. So some of the older nurses call us online nurse degrees, because that's how we learned, and we had to do Zoom and we had to do everything. And I actually, as terrifying as this sounds, I didn't really get any patient contact until I started. They did a very good job to make sure we had a longer amount of time once we started. But they just weren't allowing students in the hospital. But yeah, it was interesting. And I mean, I'm very thankful because I learned so much in such a short amount of time. It's kind of just, that's how it was. But yeah, and I had a great person training me. So yeah, it was scary though, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm a nurse educator by background. And so I actually was working in a nurse residency program at that time. And we really had to shift the way we approached it, because it wasn't really like hey, we're going to refresh you on these skills and kind of things that you learned in nursing school. It was like, oh crap, no, we're actually teaching you like in real time. And we saw that. And then I jumped into an educator position in a hospital in July of 2021. So it really was like, we cannot make assumptions that you all had great clinical time, because literally you weren't allowed in the hospitals. And so we had to really change the approach to that, and the mentoring and the support. And some places did that really well, and some places didn't. And so how was your experience once you got into the hospital? Did you feel supported? Did you have a good orientation?
Awesome. Yeah. Oh yeah, we got lots of orientation, and my preceptor, right? That's the word. Preceptor. She was amazing. She really took on the education role and, told me no dumb questions, please ask away. So they kind of understood, and I think they just knew it was happening everywhere. And so starting in the ER too, it was just
so you were new grad in the ER.
Sink or swim. And a lot of us, all of us from orientation, we swam. So, I mean, we're
Yeah,
all doing great now and still working, in the ER. So it was good.
good.
It was hard for sure.
Hmm.
But we
So
don't
how
know
did
anything different. So
true. That's a good
that's what a
point.
lot of the people who have been working for years before COVID hit, they had a big, and we saw this, a big mental change on nursing and how
Mhm.
difficult it was. And they forgot that us new grads, we literally didn't know anything different. So now that COVID's kind of, I mean, we still see a ton of it, but now that
Mm.
it's kind of slowing down and everyone's like, oh, it's getting back to normal, we're like,
This
okay,
is my
now what?
normal.
This is weird. Like, we're not running around for 12 hours straight. What's happening? So
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. And I'm blanking on the name of the book, but uh, it's about resilience. And resilience is such a kind of an icky buzzword these days
Yeah.
because people are like expected to just go back to the way things were before. But you have such a great perspective. You're like, I don't know what it was like before.
Yeah.
This is my normal. But I love the way that she talks about it because she says that, we think of resilience as bouncing back, like things have to go back to the way they were before. But COVID changed everything, and things will never ever be the way they were before. So how can you take what your experience has been and build on that to be able to bounce forward?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're a great example of this, and all the nurses that came out of COVID time is that this just is what and you've been there and you're moving forward, and this is your normal. It's not going back to something else.
Right. We're helping shape the normal for
Oh
sure. The
yeah.
new normal is, what we call
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that you went into travel nursing as a young nurse
Yes.
too, that because that is becoming much more acceptable, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure the word I'm looking for, but that it's like normal to be like, okay, I'm going to try this for a little bit. Let me go try that. So, how did you end up jumping into travel nursing?
So I got about, I think it was close to a year and 4 months of experience or something. And there were some travel nurses at my hospital at the time. And this was my goal before, all the money was in it,
Yeah,
everything. I just love to travel. So I knew I
yeah.
wanted to at least do 2 assignments, which I did. Um, and I was asking them, every question possible. And they said, you have enough experience. Like, you're a great nurse. Go do it. And so
Oh,
they kind of pushed me off the ledge there. And I was like, okay. So, and my experience was absolutely amazing.
good.
Yes, I've had two amazing hospitals. They were both smaller community hospitals where I felt comfortable with my skill set and all of that. And
Hmm.
they welcomed me with open arms. I'm still friends with some of the girls from both places. And I also had a travel nurse live with me when I was still in Florida.
Oh,
So yeah, it's such a great community and amazing people that you get to meet along the way. And I viewed it as, I felt proficient in my skills and
hmm.
there was so much more to learn. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to take the opportunity while I'm still young, I'm not married, I don't have kids, to kind of learn as much as possible, which I did. I learned in two different states, both North Carolina and Massachusetts. I worked in Boston. And I learned, a different charting system, different doctors, different views, different like material, different education, different technologies, stuff like that. And so it's really awesome to be able to bring that knowledge
Hmm.
back to Florida and kind of just fill everybody in with that as well. So it was a really, really good experience.
That's awesome. And so are you still traveling, or do you have a position in a hospital?
Technically, I don't work with like a agency anymore.
Okay.
I work with the hospital I'm at now, and they do
Mhm.
internal contracts so that they
Oh,
don't have to hire
interesting.
through an agency. It's kind of how it's all shifting,
Yes.
the traveling world, because
Okay.
they don't want to have to pay, and we don't have to get to money and stuff, but they didn't want to have
Mhm.
to pay the agency to turn around and pay us.
Mm.
They wanted to just hire us directly as a contract nurse. So
Okay.
yeah. So it's
And so
really
do you
cool.
float between different hospitals instead of an organization? That's such an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's really cool. The hospital I work for is actually it's a standalone. It's a
Okay.
non-for-profit standalone hospital. It's Jupiter Medical Center. I don't know if you've ever
Okay.
heard of it, but it I can't like speak highly enough of this.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a dream hospital. It's not where I started.
Yeah.
They obviously take experienced nurses, so I went there after I traveled, and it's just a dream. But they operate completely solely, like they're not
Yeah.
under an umbrella or underneath
Cool.
or HCA or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's why they're able to offer internal contracts, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It helps retention. A lot of people, I
Hmm.
saw a lot of people leave when COVID hit to go, chase the COVID, and
Yeah.
they had a lot of people leave. And so they were just thinking of ways to help
Yeah.
keep their nurses.
That is such an innovative concept because it is, I think that what we're seeing with nursing is that there's so many opportunities.
Yep.
It's so amazing in nursing that you want to be an ER nurse? Great. You want to be an ICU nurse? Awesome. You want to work in a clinic? You want to work at home?
Oh
You want
yeah.
to your own thing, like your own business as coaching, which we'll definitely dive into a little bit more. It's the opportunities are endless. Um, if you're interested in that, if you're
Yeah.
interested in just doing what you've always done and
Go for it.
living out your
Right.
life on the same unit, that's okay too. We
Hmm.
still need that, but I just love that we're shifting into doing different things. I've even heard of so nurses that work remote, and they're admission nurses, but they work
Hmm.
remotely like an EICU, but for like an inpatient unit. And so they do all of the visual assessment, the questions, all the things that somebody in person doesn't have to do. We're starting to see these admission nurses that are remote, and I'm
Amazing.
like, wow, that is so fascinating, because you're
Amazing.
right, like I don't have to be there in person to ask you or your family questions.
Right.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, then, that allows people to be more flexible with what they
Mhm.
do. I mean,
Exactly.
nursing, like you just said, nursing is so flexible to begin with, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I currently am on per diem, so they offer the contract during season, which in
Mhm.
Florida is the winter season.
Uh-huh.
So, out of season, you just go per diem, and
Mm.
it's given me so much opportunity to
Yeah,
pick
to
up,
travel
yeah,
and
travel.
coach and
Pick up an outpatient surgery job. So like now I'll be trained in the OR a little bit, and
cool.
yeah, just expand the knowledge as much as possible.
Yes.
Start the
Yes.
business, coach the volleyball, play a lot of volleyball. It's been
Very
awesome.
cool. Very cool. Well, I'd love
Yeah.
to talk more about how you got into coaching, because you said you married those two worlds of coaching volleyball and nursing. But what really was your why behind, like when you're like, I'm doing this program? What was that kind of background for you?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I love answering it. Being an ER nurse, and especially being an ER nurse in a remote area in North Carolina,
Mhm.
I saw a huge gap in education, a
Mm.
huge gap. And this just came from low income areas and people just not knowing. And they would return to the ER day after day with this
Mm.
difficulties where if they had a primary care doctor or if they were knowledgeable, if they just had the background, they would be able to take care of it at home by themselves.
Mhm.
So I saw the huge education gap, and I, was presented with the opportunity to learn and kind of help coach through that gap and hopefully bring that to people in my area and kind of not keep people out of the ER, but
Yeah.
kind of be able to be there for somebody and say this is a primary care, issue. Let's, what kind of medications are you on? That kind of
Mhm.
thing. And yeah, that's what I do. I do a lot of I'm into fitness, obviously.
Mhm.
Fitness and nutrition is very, very big in my world. So that's kind of what I coach my clients around. But that's kind of my why, is just to kind of help educate people
Mhm.
and keep them and meet their health goals. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's as we've seen healthcare, right, shift more to a sick model, like we're constantly reactive and that
Mhm.
coming to the ER because the blood pressure's too high or they're retaining fluids, but then come to find out they're not taking their medications, they're not looking at their diet, they're not exercising, right? And so that what's beautiful about coaching is it really looks at that holistic model. So we're looking at that whole being, like, let's look at the mindset behind why you're not taking your medications. Or is it a financial thing? Is it just that I don't know why I'm taking it, so it doesn't feel like it matters? Or, so that's the beauty of coaching, is it takes in the whole person as more of a proactive model versus reactive.
Instead of saying, here's some hydralazine, here's some clonidine, like, go home.
Yeah.
See pro,
just putting a Band-Aid on things.
They would be right back. Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of looking like, hey, what are you doing at home? And so it's kind of, being able to meet with clients weekly and say, here are your goals, here's what's going. I've seen tremendous changes. I actually got a text from my client, who's not even my client anymore. And he said, I had my CTA yesterday. It was beautiful. He was having blood pressure issues. He said, I'm meeting with them next week and hopefully I'll be off my meds. And it's like,
wow,
that's a huge win for them, because they're not someone who wants to be on them. And that's what we see a lot, is people don't necessarily want to be taking all this medicine, and they need it for their health. But if we can work other ways and find out their why, then we can help them too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're doing this work. Is it mostly in person for you, or do you do virtual stuff as well?
I do mostly virtual right now. I have met a few clients in person and it's been awesome. Yeah, and it's fun, a little gym session here and there, lunch.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Before we started recording, we were talking about your transition from being a D1 athlete into, quote unquote, the real world, and like how that was a difficult transition for you. Yeah, adulting. Yes. And that is such a unique perspective that I don't think I'd really given a lot of thought to. So would you mind sharing your experience around that?
Sure. So volleyball has been my life. Let's see, probably since I was 8 years old, which I'm 26 now, and it's been a very long time. And all my athletes out there will totally understand. You live, breathe, play your sport. Like, that is what you do. And if you are able to have the opportunity to play in college, but even if you just played high school or played club, you still have these same feelings that once your sport ends, you kind of look at yourself and say, okay, now what? And you almost feel a little lost in the world because you don't have the routine. You don't have the coach saying, come to practice at this time. You don't have, for me, I was fortunate. I had meals and stuff like that with my team, and nutrition wise, and we had all the tools we needed, and there was never anything touched base on after college. And what do I do next? And how do I continue my health? And what are the things I have to look out for and stuff like that? And so when we don't have the sport every single day, it was, for me at least, it was very tough. I went through, I think my senior spring is when volleyball is a fall sport. So my senior spring, I didn't have to play a sport. I didn't have to go to the workouts. I didn't have to go practice every day. And I kind of lost concept of time. I was trying to fill it with all these different things. I was going out with my friends more. I was like, just unhealthy, consuming alcohol and food and all of these things that I was just like, wow, is this what life is? And so now that I'm 26, I kind of look back and I'm just like, kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis. And I think a lot of athletes feel that way, but it's not really talked about because you have to almost mourn the loss of your sport.
Yes.
And the loss of your team and, what goes on with it. And I'm very fortunate I get to still play beach volleyball competitively. I played this morning with an amazing group of ladies. I get to play, I get to coach. I'm still involved in it, but there will be nothing like playing and being competitive in that way. And so I think that's like something I'm very passionate about, is the mindset and the post-collegiate or even high school club athletes that, are struggling with, okay, what do I do next? How do I work out? What do I do? But yeah, there's a very different mindset for sure. And I've seen it in my different clients, someone who was an athlete their whole life and someone who wasn't, and how they kind of attack different goals and situations.
Yeah.
The athlete's got the all out mindset. I want to do all of it all at once and go, 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 go. Whereas the other client who wasn't an athlete is very like, I don't really feel like it. And, like
Yeah.
I don't really know. And so it's a very different way of coaching, but it's also a different way of living. I don't know. It's very interesting.
That is such a great perspective to have, and not an athlete. People who know me know I am just I enjoy being part of a team, just not my natural athletic abilities. But around that, when you said around the identity crisis, when right before COVID or right as COVID was starting, I left a nurse director job. I was very, very burned out. I needed to leave the job. And I was jumping into a new job as a consultant, which was going to be awesome. I got laid off in 6 weeks. And so shifting from who am I? I am an unemployed nurse in a pandemic.
Right.
I have no worth. I have no value. I couldn't get a job. That self-worth, that identity as a nurse, I had invested so much. I mean, at that point, I had been a nurse for about 15 years, 16 years. And so I was so wrapped up in that identity of being a nurse and the value I bring and who I am. And then suddenly I'm not a nurse anymore. I mean, I was still technically a nurse, but I couldn't get a job as a nurse. And so those 3 months of being unemployed were definitely one of the most difficult times in my life, because I was so lost. I didn't know what I liked, what I wanted. I didn't have a purpose. I wasn't going to work. And so I imagine that similar transition. You're like, well, what's next for me? Who am I now? And so I had to really kind of slough off well, I'm still me, regardless of my profession or the sport you play, or what you do. And so, but it took me a long time to kind of embrace that, is that I'm still me without the nurse identity. And so I'm curious if that was at all kind of stuff you worked through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody, who loses something like that will go through, and it's amazing almost, because it's a blessing, because it really does help you find your true self and your true everything. I mean, mine was a huge wake up call, because, you walk around and you say, oh, hi, I'm Lauren, I'm a volleyball player. And that was not how I introduced myself. Oh, hi, I'm Lauren, I'm a nursing school student, It wasn't like as cool. It wasn't as interesting to me, at least I thought. Right? And so then just finding that worth and finding how much I do mean to this world and how much I do bring outside of that sport, like my sport wasn't everything about me. And so that is the biggest thing. But yeah, moving into nursing, now I coach. I try and teach, I coach my girls more life skills sometimes than skills, because I know that they're all going to kind of go through a similar thing, and it's I just want to be able to be there for people when that does happen, because I wish I had somebody kind of hold my hand and be like, hey, this is tough, but you're gonna get through it. You're gonna, here's what we'll do this week, here's what we'll do next, and kind of help me see the light at the end of the tunnel, for sure. It was
that's beautiful. Yeah. And I think now you can probably look back on it with gratitude, but when you're going through it, it is so hard. And it took me a couple years. I mean, really only in the last year and a half that I've been able to go, okay, like, I'm so glad that happened, because now I am much more like I feel more whole, more like I know who I am and what I want and what I like and what I need. Whereas before I pushed a lot of that aside. And so that, a lot of good came out of that time.
Yeah. For sure. And again, just being able to take time for yourself. I mean, I won't say I'm perfect, because I still struggle day to day. I get out of bed and I'm like, well, I don't have to go work out, but I know it
Yeah.
makes me feel good. So, it's battling those two things of nobody's telling me I have to do it anymore, and I have to want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the food, the nutrition. I actually hired a nutritionist. Her and I have been working together for about a year now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just working on how much I should be eating, what I should be eating, that kind of thing, because I was way under eating my first 2 years of nursing because I just didn't know. Again, knowledge.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. And so just being able to like open my eyes and see all of that, it's definitely been amazing for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Well, as we're kind of wrapping up, I would love to know if you have any, I don't know, advice, because I don't like using that word, but any thoughts, suggestions, either for nurses or non-nurses on kind of, working through your own journey, or what it's coming up for you as I kind of mumble on a little bit.
No, you're good. I think for my new nurses, hang in there.
Yeah.
It gets easier. I know everyone probably tells you that, but just absorb like a sponge and hang in there. And probably for athletes, same thing. I mean, it's just
Mm,
really lean into who you are and to like what you do want to do in this world. And find your new identity in something
yeah.
other than your sport. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you, Lauren. It's been lovely chatting with you today. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.